Hello, everyone.
Dream until you realize you've basically adopted a snore.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Who's ready for a scary story? Hello. Hey, Pom. Hey, Martha. Hey, Shirley. Hey, Amy. Hey, Neverfold. Hey, Hopi Love, Little Butterfly. Hello, Danis. Hey, Julie. Hey, Kimmy. Hello, Martha. Hello, Star Wilkinson. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. If this is your first time here, let us know. My name is Bryn Morgan. I'm a horror author. I'm also a teller of, well, just about every scary story you can think of. Scary stories, paranormal stories, ghost stories, true crime, horror, you name it, I cover it all. Appalachian horror. Is there anything I don't do? I highly doubt it. Thank you, thank you. Hello, Just. Hey, Jim Rocks. Look at all of you coming in here. Hello over there in YouTube land. I missed you. Always good to be with my night dwellers. Where is my YouTube? There it is. Let me get in here and say hello. Hello. Hey, Mary. Did you have a good weekend? Hey, Kimmy. Hello, Angel. Hello. Hello, Gidget. Hey, Tammy Weber. Hey, Bossman. Hello, Cece. Hello, Melanie. Let's start sharing the live if you would consider it. Let's share it with friends, family. Hello, Ebony Eyes. How are you? Let's start sharing. Thank you, Julie. Hello, Kim 1968. How are you? Harry King. Welcome in. Have you seen the videos posted today? Do you know what tonight is? Hello, Firefly. Come on in. Hey, Magic Moon. I saw your comment. I haven't had a chance to post to a comment on it yet. That was so funny. Thank you, Cece. The weekend was quick. Too quick. Hey, Mia, how are you? Hello, Amber Robinson. Do you like scary stories? Do you have friends, family that likes scary stories? Have you told them about Twisted Tales Live? No? Well, what are you waiting for? Hey, Kingfisher. Yes, Angel, a new crown, and she fits gloriously. I hope everyone had a relaxing weekend. Good to see everyone in here. Let's start sharing, let's start tapping, let's get these likes up. Hello, Eric Jones. First Twisted Trinket goal is up. My Bewitched Boutique is here. Do as the moon calls you. Whether it's a small trinket or a large one, it is greatly appreciated and goes towards keeping this live alive. Hello, Justine. Thank you, Kingfisher. Thank you. Thank you, Danis. Hey, XJ. Hello, Pebble. Oh, I'm glad to hear that you did chillax. Always good if there was some chillaxing. It is. Can you see the details? They are exquisite. I may have a new favorite. Thank you, Missy. How are you? Well, thank you, Nina. As you're coming in, and if you're new here, let us know where you're from. Are you a secret night dweller who dwells in the shadows? Tonight may be the night to just come out and say hi. Thank you, Deanna. Ocala, Florida. I love Florida. Hello, Nana Sherry. How are you? A lot of talking tonight, so I gotta keep it ready. Two minutes. Hey, Judy Willis. Oh, you know what? I think I can show you. Hold on just a moment. Purple. This gown is just absolutely lovely. I wore it once, and with the way that the story is tonight, I was like, I want something mystical, something that looks magical, and this is it. So welcome. It is just very flowy. I can't really back up much more, but it goes all the way to the ground. Oh, you can see it on YouTube too. Well, that's wonderful, but it is the most unusual shade. I don't know. It's like a magenta, but it's just so many different shades of purple, really. But she's quite lovely. So yes, that is the gown. It does look like a goddess, for sure. Hey, Tracy. Exactly, Pomon. Hello, Indiana Girl. It is a gorgeous color. Hey, Rose. Hey, Wolves Whisper. Hey, Gracie. Yes, I am loving purple. Thank you. You love purple, Kingfisher? So do I. All right, let's bring it down a notch. What would suit this story? It might have to be this one. Where could you buy the gown? I forgot where I got this one. I want to say it was Temu. I believe. Pretty sure. We are going to try to avoid pinning so much because since TikTok did a new update, it has a tendency to cover my face. So That is the reason that there was a big bar across it. I am thinking of how to correct the issue, but I haven't figured it out quite yet. I think it was Timu, Rose. I'm pretty sure. Oh, you're talking about something else. Oh, I am so sorry. All right. Let's check everything. How's the music? On both YouTube and TikTok. Oh, thank you for lighting up the corgi. Thank you. Hello, Tara. How are you? Let me first start out by saying that this is a warm, safe, loving, welcoming environment. You are most welcome here. There is no judgment here. We only talk things scary, okay? So we don't allow energy vampires. If you have something negative to say and you want to keep things in an uproar, this probably isn't the life for you. With that being said, who watched the videos that were posted today? If you did, then you know what the story is going to be. The case of Christopher Case. Have you heard of it? If you know anything about it, post it in the comments below. You are in for a treat. But first, welcome to the Night Realm. I am the Night Queen, and tonight, my Night Dwellers, you are going to question whether curses are real or myth. By the end of this story, well, I'll let you make your own choice. But let's prepare. Lower your lights. Light a candle for ambiance. Lock your doors. Pull your curtains nice and tight. Wrap yourself up in your warmest blanket as I begin the story, the case of Christopher Case. What I'm about to tell you tonight is not fiction. I wish it was. Every major detail, the business trip, the mysterious woman, her threat, the escalating supernatural phenomena, the desperate spiritual preparations, and the circumstances of Christopher's death is documented in police reports, medical examiner files, and witness testimony. Only the internal thoughts and specific dialogue have been reconstructed by me to tell this story in its full, terrifying detail. Are you ready? Let me know in the comments. Prepare yourselves for a journey into the unknown, where the boundaries between belief and skepticism, between the possible and the impossible, dissolve entirely. This is the story of Christopher Case and the 7 days that changed everything. Based on the true events of April 1991. Chapter 1. The Music Man. Christopher Case had always believed in things he could see, touch, prove. At 35, he was the embodiment of rational success. A former radio broadcaster from Raleigh, North Carolina, who had carved out a respectable niche for himself in the music industry. His move to Seattle in bigger opportunities had paid off handsomely. Very handsome indeed, because he was working as an artistic manager and music executive with AEI. Basically, they were a company that provided music for elevators, companies, large corporate functions. Christopher had found his calling in the intersection of business and creativity. His apartment in the 1300 block of North 152nd Avenue in North King County was modest but comfortable, a testament to his practical nature. The walls were bare of religious iconography, free from any hint of superstition. He didn't believe in it. Christopher was a man of science, of contracts, royalties, of tangible results. Keep that in mind. He exercised regularly, maintained his health with religious dedication to vitamin supplements, and kept in touch with old friends back in North Carolina through regular phone calls. Among his many musical interests was one that set him apart from his contemporaries: ancient music. He loved it. While other executives chased the latest trends and chart toppers, Christopher was fascinated by melodies and rhythms that had echoed through civilizations that had been long dead. Egyptian chants, Mesopotamian hymns, the forgotten songs of cultures that existed before written history. These were the sounds and songs that captured his imagination. It was this passion that would lead him to San Francisco in April of 1991 on what should have been a normal routine business trip. The meeting had been arranged to discuss ancient Egyptian music with other industry professionals who shared his esoteric interest. Christopher packed his bags with the same methodical care that he applied to everything in his life, checking his itinerary twice, ensuring he had all the necessary documents for what he expected to be a productive few days in the city by the bay. As he locked his apartment door and headed to the airport, Christopher Case had no idea that he was walking toward an encounter that would shatter every rational belief he had about the world. He had no way of knowing that within a week he would exist no more. Found in circumstances so bizarre that they would baffle police investigators and haunt anyone who learned the details of his final days. The flight to San Francisco was uneventful. Christopher settled into the window seat, reviewing his notes about ancient musical scales and archaeological discoveries of primitive instruments. The businessman beside him was absorbed in spreadsheets. The woman across the aisle in a romance novel. Everything was perfectly, reassuringly normal. But normal was about to become a luxury Christopher Case would never enjoy again. What happened, you ask? You're about to find out. Chapter 2. The Woman in San Francisco. The meeting was held at an upscale restaurant in downtown San Francisco, the kind of place where deals were made over expensive wine, and the ambient lighting cast everything in warm golden hues. Everyone looked beautiful or extremely good looking in that light. Christopher arrived precisely on time, as was his habit, and was shown to a table where several music industry professionals were already engaged in animated discussion about their shared passion for historical music. The conversation flowed easily. Talk of newly discovered papyrus fragments containing musical notations that had just been discovered. Debates about tuning systems used in ancient Egypt. Speculation about the spiritual significance of certain rhythmic patterns. Christopher found himself relaxing as he drank his glass of wine, genuinely enjoying the company of people who understood his unusual interest. It was during the second course that she joined them. She was introduced simply as someone with extensive knowledge of ancient Egyptian music, though her exact credentials remained vague. Christopher guessed her to be in her 50s, but even perhaps older than that, but there was something about her. She was beautiful, puzzling. It was difficult to tell just how old she really was in the restaurant's flattering light. She had an intensity about her that commanded attention. Dark eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. Her voice, when she spoke about the mystical properties of ancient Egyptian music, carried an authority that made even the most skeptical guest lean in and listen to her. She spoke knowledgeably about subjects Christopher had studied for years, referencing obscure text and archaeological findings with casual familiarity. But there was something else in her discourse, an undercurrent that made Christopher feel uncomfortable. She didn't just discuss ancient music as an academic subject. She spoke of it as if it were a living force, something that could influence the physical world in ways that science couldn't explain. Music, she said at one point, her eyes fixed on Christopher as if she saw no one else there, has always been the bridge between the seen and the unseen worlds, Mr. Case. The ancient Egyptians understood this. They knew that certain combinations of notes, certain rhythms could call things, summon things, change things, Mr. Case. The others around the table nodded politely, treating her words as metaphorical, perhaps even poetic. But Christopher caught something in her tone that suggested this woman meant every word she said, literally. As the evening progressed, her attention seemed to increasingly become focused on Christopher. She asked detailed questions about his work, his background, his personal life. When Christopher mentioned that he lived alone in Seattle, that he was single and dedicated to his career, her interest appeared to sharpen. She leaned closer when she spoke to him, her hand occasionally brushing his arm for emphasis. Other members of the dinner party began to drift away as the hour grew late. Soon, Christopher found himself alone at the table with this mysterious Egyptian woman. That's when her true intentions became clear. So, we are alone now, Christopher Gaines. I'd like to continue our conversation somewhere more private, she said, her voice taking on a sultry quality that made Christopher shift uncomfortably in his seat. She rubbed her hand on the top of his leg. My hotel isn't far from here. We could explore these ideas further. Christopher, ever the gentleman, politely declined. He explained that he had an early flight back to Seattle, that he needed to return to his own hotel to prepare for the morning. But the woman was persistent. She moved his chair closer. Are you certain? She pressed, moving her face, her mouth, her lips to his ear. I sense in you a deep appreciation, Mr. Case, for the mysteries of the ancient world. I could show you things, teach you things that aren't written in any book. The implication was clear. Again, Christopher cleared his throat. He pushed away and declined, more firmly this time. I'm really flattered, he assured her, but I'm just caught up in trying to make a go of the ancient music, and I'm just not interested in anything beyond that. You understand? That's when everything changed. The woman's face transformed. The warm, intellectual expression vanished, replaced by something cold and predatory. Her dark eyes seemed to flash with genuine anger. And when she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper, yet somehow more menacing than if she had shouted. And there was a slight tremble to her voice. You're making a mistake, she said slowly, deliberately. A very serious mistake. Each word was drawn out, every syllable clear. Christopher tried to lighten the mood, to diffuse what had suddenly become an uncomfortable, a very uncomfortable situation. He reached for his wallet to pay his portion of the bill. He thought about paying hers, but then he thought better of it. He was eager to escape what had become a very unpleasant encounter. But the woman wasn't finished. She leaned across the table, close enough that he could feel her breath against his ear, and spoke words that would echo in his mind for the remaining days of his life. I am a witch, Christopher Case, and you have just made an enemy of someone who knows how to make you pay for your rejection. You will regret this decision, Christopher Case. Within 7 days, you will be dead. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Christopher stared at her, certain that he had misheard her, that this was some kind of a bizarre joke, that maybe even his associates had planned this. But the woman's expression was deadly serious. She stood up from the table with fluid grace, gathered her things, and walked away without another word. leaving Christopher alone with the check and the impossible echo of her threat. He sat there for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. This was 1991 in a civilized city at an upscale restaurant. People didn't seriously claim to be witches. They didn't threaten to kill someone over a politely declined romantic advance. The whole thing was absurd. The kind of encounter that would make a good story to tell when he talked to his friends back home. Christopher paid the bill and returned to his hotel, shaking his head at the strange end to what had otherwise been a productive business trip. He had dealt with difficult people before in his career: temperamental artists, demanding clients, unreasonable executives. This was just another eccentric personality, probably someone with mental health issues who had fixated on the mystical aspects of ancient music just a little too intensely. As he prepared for bed in his hotel room, Christopher Case had no idea that his rational, ordered world was about to collapse entirely. He had no way of knowing that somewhere in San Francisco, a woman who was claiming to be a witch was beginning the process that would, within exactly 7 days, leave him unalived in circumstances that would defy every logical explanation. The last thing that Christopher remembered before falling asleep was the woman's voice, soft but penetrating. Within 7 days, Christopher Case, you will be dead. He dismissed it as the ranting of someone that was unbalanced, who he would soon learn that dismissing the impossible can be the most dangerous mistake of all. Chapter 3, The Return Home. The flight back to Seattle should have been Christopher's return to normalcy. As the plane lifted off from San Francisco International Airport, he gazed down at the city shrinking below and thought a wave of relief wash over him. The strange encounter with the woman at the restaurant was ridiculous, he thought, and it already seemed like something from a dream, vivid and unsettling while it was happening, but rapidly losing its power in the harsh light of day. He chuckled. Wow. Well, that was something else. During the hour-and-a-half flight, Christopher tried to focus on the legitimate business he had accomplished. He had made some valuable contacts and gathered information that would help him in future projects involving historical music, and established himself as someone with worth consulting on matters of ancient musical traditions. The woman's bizarre behavior was just an unfortunate footnote to an otherwise successful trip, right? But as the plane descended towards Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, Christopher found himself replaying the conversation in his mind with uncomfortable clarity. In 7 days, Christopher Case, you will be dead. Now, as he was hearing her say it as she had the night before, the tone was changing. Maybe he shouldn't have rejected her advances. Maybe he had been nicer to her, not going to her hotel room, but being kinder. He was always blunt. The intensity in her eyes when she claimed to be a witch. The specific deliberate way she'd said his full name. Christopher Case. As if she were inscribing it somewhere. Permanent and terrible. This is ridiculous, he muttered to himself as he gathered his carry-on bag. He was a rational man living in a rational world. Whatever problems that woman had were hers to deal with and had nothing to do with him. He had been polite, but firm in declining her advances. He was 35. She looked like she was in her late 50s. And that was the end of it. He wasn't going to think about it anymore. Oh, really? The taxi ride to his apartment in the North King County was routine. The driver was chatty, talking about the Mariners' chances in the upcoming season and complaining about traffic construction on I-5. Christopher found the mundane conversation soothing, a perfect antidote to the weirdness that he had left behind in San Francisco. His apartment welcomed him back with open arms. It was familiar, organized, comfort. Everything was exactly as he left it. His books neatly arranged on their shelves. His small but well-maintained stereo system ready to fill the space with music. His exercise equipment standing ready for his workout routine. That's what he needed. He needed to run on the treadmill. This was his sanctuary, his carefully constructed haven of rational order. Christopher unpacked methodically, placing his few changes of clothes in the hamper, filing away the business cards that he had collected, and setting his notes about ancient Egyptian music on his desk for future reference. He felt his equilibrium returning with each small ritual of homecoming. Everything was fine. She was an insane woman. That evening, he followed his usual routine. A light dinner, some reading about recent archaeological discoveries in Egypt, and phone calls to catch up with friends. Everything was perfectly normal. She had lied. Day one. Nothing happened. It was when he went to bed that the first hint of strangeness crept back into his ordered world. His sleep, usually deep and untroubled, was plagued by disturbing dreams. He found himself in vast, dark spaces filled with sounds he couldn't identify. Not quite music, not quite voices, but something that seemed to pull at him with an urgency that he couldn't understand. In the dreams, he was always searching for something or someone. But every time he thought he was close to finding what he sought, the landscape would shift, and he would find himself lost again in the echoing darkness. He woke several times during the night, each time with the distinct feeling that he wasn't alone in his apartment. The rational part of his mind immediately dismissed this as the natural result of travel fatigue and the stress of the strange encounter in San Francisco. But each time that he lay back down after getting a glass of water, the feeling of being watched persisted until exhaustion finally pulled him back into an uneasy, fitful sleep. The next morning, day 2, Christopher felt groggy and off balance, but he attributed this to poor sleep and perhaps something he had eaten on the plane that disagreed with him. He went through his usual morning routine: shower, vitamins, a protein shake, some light stretching, and felt somewhat better. Yes, in fact, he felt very much improved. The dreams already seemed distant and meaningless to him. But over the next 2 days, a pattern began to emerge that even Christopher's rational mind couldn't entirely dismiss. The dreams came every night now, growing more vivid and disturbing. In them, he was no longer just lost in dark spaces. Now, he was being pursued by something he couldn't see clearly. He would run through endless corridors and vast empty rooms, always hearing footsteps behind him that perfectly matched his own pace, no matter how fast or how slow that he moved. During his waking hours, he began to notice small things that troubled him. Sounds in his apartment that he couldn't quite identify. Soft scratching that might have been mice in the walls, but seemed to come everywhere, from everywhere at once. A persistent feeling that his carefully organized possessions had been subtly rearranged, though he could never pinpoint exactly what was different. He kept his coffee cup, his favorite coffee cup, facing east, but he could have swore that it was facing west that morning. Most unsettling of all was the sensation that had begun when he returned from San Francisco and was growing stronger each day. The absolute certainty that he was being watched. Not just occasionally, but constantly. As if invisible eyes were tracking his every movement. At work, at home, even in public spaces, the feeling never left him. Christopher, what's wrong with you? You're jumping at your own shadow, man. He was, wasn't he? By the third day after his return from San Francisco, Christopher was beginning to look haggard. His colleagues in AEI noticed that he seemed distracted, jumpy, not quite his usual composed self. When asked if everything was all right, he would force a smile and blame it on travel fatigue. But privately, he was becoming increasingly disturbed by what was happening to him. It was on that third night that the dreams took a new and terrifying turn. He found himself not just being pursued, but confronted. A figure stepped out of the shadows of his dream landscape. The woman from San Francisco. But she was different, somehow. She was in a large, dark room, holding a ball of light, floating midair, her long black hair floating around her like a mist. She somehow seemed more than human now, her eyes reflecting a light that came from no invisible source. Did you think that distance would save you, Christopher Case? She asked in her dream, her voice echoing from every direction at once. Did you think that you could simply walk away from what you started? Christopher tried to speak, to protest that he had done nothing wrong, but no sound came from his throat. She floated closer to him in his nightmare. One, two, three, four. You have 4 days, Christopher Case. The woman continued, moving closer with each word. 4 days to understand what you brought upon yourself. 4 days to feel the weight of your arrogance. Christopher Case woke up screaming. For the first time since returning from San Francisco, Christopher Case allowed himself to consider the possibility that something genuinely supernatural might be happening to him. He sat on his bed in the early morning darkness, trying to catch his breath and failing to convince himself that these were just stress dreams brought on by an unpleasant encounter with an unstable person. But even as fear began to take root in his rational mind, Christopher clung to the hope that this was all psychological. That the woman's bizarre threat had simply planted a suggestion in his subconscious that was now manifesting as anxiety, dreams, and paranoid thoughts. What he didn't yet realize was that the psychological torment was just the beginning, Night Dwellers. The real horror was still to come. So tell me, Night Dwellers, do you think that it's just psychological? Or do you believe it because of the witch? Let me know in the comments. Chapter 4, The Unraveling. By the fourth day, after his return from San Francisco, Christopher Case was no longer the composed, rational music executive that his colleagues and friends knew. The man who looked back at them now from his bathroom mirror was haggard. A beard, dark circles under his eyes, and a nervous tension that seemed to radiate from every muscle in his body. Sleep had become his enemy. Each night brought dreams more vivid and terrifying than the last. The woman from the restaurant appeared regularly to him now, sometimes as herself, sometimes transformed into something that his mind could barely process. Shapes that shifted and writhed. Voices that spoke in languages that predated human speech. Images that left him gasping and clawing his way back to consciousness. But worse than the dreams were the moments between sleeping and waking. Those liminal spaces where he couldn't be sure what was real and what was a nightmare. He would find himself standing in his kitchen with no memory of getting out of bed, or discover that he had turned on every light in his apartment during the night, apparently while still asleep. The feeling of being watched had intensified to the point where Christopher found it difficult to function normally now. At work, he would suddenly spin around, certain that someone was standing directly behind him, only to find empty space. During meetings, he would lose track of conversations as his attention was drawn to the shadows that seemed to move independently of their own sources. He had a friend. Her name was Sammy Soda, a teacher and a psychic back in Fayetteville, North Carolina. She had been receiving increasingly disturbing phone calls from Christopher Case. Sammy was one of the few people in his life who had any knowledge of occult matters. And Christopher found himself desperately needing to talk to someone who might understand what was happening to him. He called her at midnight one night. "Sammy, I know how this sounds, but I think someone's done something to me. Something supernatural. Sammy listened patiently as Christopher recounted the encounter in San Francisco with the witch. The woman's threat and the escalating strangeness that had consumed his life since returning home. Unlike many of Christopher's friends, Sammy didn't immediately dismiss his concerns as stress or overwork. Christopher, what's going on? She said carefully. You've never believed in any of this before. You've always been the most skeptical person I know about anything that can't be proven scientifically. What makes you think this is real? Christopher sighed and paused. Because I can feel it, Christopher replied, his voice cracking with exhaustion and fear. Whatever she did to me, Sammy, I can feel it working. It's like something is eating away at me from the inside. I'm losing pieces of myself every day. Sammy was deeply concerned, not just about Christopher's mental state, but about the possibility that he might be under some kind of psychic attack. She knew that it was real. Christopher, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You need to seek protection. You need to surround yourself with positive energy. I would advise going to a church, talking to a priest. You've got to create a barrier between you and whatever this force is that's affecting you, and you need to do it now. As soon as you get up in the morning, you need to go. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? But Christopher was resistant to most of her suggestions. His rational mind still fought against accepting supernatural explanations, even as his lived experience was forcing him to confront the impossible with every passing moment. It was on the 5th day after San Francisco that the psychological torment began to manifest in physical ways. Christopher woke up that morning to find scratch marks on his arms and chest. Not little kitty cat scratches. Long, deep welts that looked as if they'd been made by fingernails. And the cuts looked infected. He had no memory of inflicting them on himself. He didn't have any fingernails. He kept them short. No recollection of anything really that could have caused them. The marks were tender to the touch and burned like fire. They burned with an intensity that was out of proportion to their look. At work that day, his hands shook so badly that you could barely hold a pen. Colleagues who tried to engage in conversation with him found him distracted and jumpy. His responses often completely disconnected from their questions. Chris, did you hear what I said? Oh, what? Did you hear what I said about that track? I don't think that one's gonna work. Oh, okay. By mid-afternoon, his supervisor suggested, Christopher, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you're different. You need to take some time off. You look like you're coming down with something. You don't look good. I would go to a doctor. Christopher gladly accepted the suggestion. The thought of being alone in his apartment was terrifying. But the alternative? Trying to maintain a facade of normalcy while his world crumbled around him was becoming impossible. That evening, he called Sammy again. Christopher, what's going on? It's getting worse, he told her, his voice barely above a whisper. I found marks on my body this morning, Sammy. Cuts. Scratches that I didn't make. And the dreams. Sammy, in the dreams, she's not even pretending to be human anymore. Christopher, I need you to listen to me, Sammy said aggressively, with urgency. You need to get help now. Not just spiritual help. You need to see a doctor. Maybe talk to someone about what you're going through psychologically. If I could come out there, I would. But I've got my kids. Even if this is supernatural, Christopher, it's affecting you physically now. You could be in real danger, my friend. But Christopher was spiraling too quickly to follow rational advice. The woman's deadline was echoing in his mind with increasing urgency. 7 days, Christopher. Yes. He had been back from San Francisco for 5 days now. By the woman's prophecy, he only had 2 days left to live. That night, he barely slept at all. Every time he closed his eyes, he could feel something in the room with him. He could feel a presence that seemed to be studying his every move, waiting for something. He kept every light in the apartment on and sat in his living room chair, afraid to lie down, afraid to close his eyes for more than a few seconds at a time. Sometime around 3 a.m., he heard scratching sounds coming from inside the walls. Not the quick, random scurrying of mice or insects, but deliberate, rhythmic scratching, as if something was trying to claw its way through the drywall from the inside. The sound seemed to follow him as he moved through the apartment, always coming from whatever wall was closest to where he stood. Christopher pressed his ear to the wall, trying to determine if there was any rational explanation for the sounds. But he knew. What he heard instead was something that made his blood freeze. A sound like whispering, too faint to make out words, but unmistakably in cadence and rhythm. Human. It was as if something was having a conversation just on the other side of the wall, speaking in a language he couldn't understand but somehow found deeply familiar. He spent the rest of the night sitting curled up in the corner of his living room, as far from any wall as possible, watching the shadows cast by his lamps and trying to convince himself that what he was experiencing had some rational explanation for it. But deep down, Christopher Case was beginning to accept the truth that his rational mind had been fighting for days. Something impossible was happening to him. Something that couldn't be explained by stress or psychological trauma or any other comfortable scientific explanation. No. The woman in San Francisco had told him he would be unalived within 7 days. He was starting to believe her. So what do you think, Night Dwellers? Is he making all this up? Is all of this happening because of something in his mind? Or is he truly cursed by a witch? Let me know in the comments. We are going to take a 5-minute intermission, and then I will be back with the rest of Christopher Case. I told you it was chilling. He is cursed. If you believe it, it will happen. Sounds like an entity attached to him. Both. I think it's real, but I'm leaning toward paranoia. Yes, both. Paranoia or curse. I'll be right back. And for those who are just coming in, I will, or those who haven't seen it, this is the dress tonight, and it is, I chose it because it is mystical and it is iridescent and it is purple, and I don't know, it has got so many different shades in it. It is just simply gorgeous. I absolutely love it. It's definitely a goddess feel to it for sure, but this is the gown. Isn't it beautiful? Hey Dan, how are you? Hello Angie Bratt, thank you for the follow. I've actually been cleaning out some things from in here, so because I was feeling so cluttered in my mind, and I was just like, I have to do something. So I am working on it little bit by little bit. It's a good one, isn't it, Jules? Hey, ask me, LOL. I know, XJ, it really is. Hello, Sagittarius. So the argument here with, I did so much research on this case. There are so many that believe that he was cursed, and then there are others that believe that it was just the power of suggestion, that it was placed in his mind and he just unraveled. So so there's, it's like, it's just 50% believe it's paranoia, 50% believe that it's a curse. So what do you think? Hey Michelle, you're welcome, Dan. If you are just coming in and you are new here and this is your first Twisted Tales Live, welcome. This is a safe, warm, loving, welcome community, very interactive community. We have a lot of fun with each other. There are no room for energy vampires here. The only thing that we talk about is fear and scary stories, and that's pretty much it. So if you like scary stories, paranormal stories, ghost stories, Appalachian horror, folklore, urban legend, true crime, serial unalivers, you came to the right place. Hit that follow button and the notification bell and never miss another Twisted Tales Live. And welcome. Hey, Marine's daughter. Hey, Lulu. Hey, Penny. How are you? Hey, Tanya Jean. Freaking you out, HJ, is it? And what's scary is I've heard these before. This isn't like the first one. Let's take 3 more minutes so you can get back in and get settled. I worked with a lady once, and she firmly believed that she had been hexed. She had It was her husband's ex-wife, and she was into, was it hoodoo or voodoo or something, but she said that she had put something on her, and she had taken a piece of her hair from her hairbrush or something, and she firmly believed that she was cursed, that she had put a hex on her. I know, right, Datus? Oh, thank you, Tanya. Thank you. Thank everyone tonight for the gifting, for the shared live, sharing the live videos, the likes. Thank you so much. We're at 150K. Yeah, and I just heard that, you know, I don't know, curse or the mind. Thank you, Don Juan of Dozen, for sharing the live. Thank you. We still have that live goal to hit. We're almost there. We're over 50% there. Who can finish that? I seek to only bring you the most fully, thoroughly documented stories. I want to provide you with all the details. So I'm very particular about the stories that I tell you. And I want you to have a 2.5 hour experience that makes you question everything. Oh, thank you, Don Juan. That is so nice of you to say. Thank you, thank you. All right, everyone. Are you enjoying this story? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to change up the music for this next part. Oh, wonderful turtle woman. One day I bet you they will come in here and show up and enjoy it. Thank you. Oh, that's creepy. Oh, I love the hat. Thank you, Lulu. Chapter 5. Desperate Measures. Let's get back into story mode. Lower your lights. Light a candle for ambiance. Lock your doors. Pull your curtains nice and tight. Wrap yourself in your warmest blanket to avoid the chills that are about to enter your spine. If you've been with us at the very beginning, Christopher Case is a logical man. He believes in science. But he met a woman in San Francisco over dinner. He thwarted her advances, and as a result, he angered a witch who told him, Christopher Case, you have made a serious mistake. In 7 days, you will be unalived. We are now on the 5th day, And it's not getting good. It's only getting darker. 2 days left, according to the witch's prophecy. A curse or paranoia? You decide. Chapter 5. Desperate Measures. The sixth day dawned gray and oppressive, with heavy clouds hanging over Seattle like a shroud. Christopher Case had not slept at all the previous night, and his reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like that of a man who was already halfway dead. Halfway to the grave. His skin had taken on a sallow, unhealthy pallor. His eyes were bloodshot and wild with exhaustion, and his hands trembled constantly, no matter how hard he tried to control them. The scratches on his arms and chest had not healed. They were infected. If anything, they seemed as if they were getting worse by the second, taking on an angry, infected appearance that made no medical sense whatsoever. More disturbing still, more marks were appearing each morning. Scratches on his cheek, bruises on his arms, and welts that formed overnight while he lay in terrified semi-consciousness, afraid to sleep, but unable to stay fully awake. Christopher knew with absolute certainty that if he didn't take action, he would be gone within 24 hours. The woman's prophecy was no longer a threat that he could dismiss. It had become an approaching reality that he could feel in his bones. For the first time in his adult life, Christopher Case turned to religion. He had never been particularly spiritual. His upbringing had been nominally Christian, but his adult life had been guided by reason, evidence, and rational thought. Churches were nothing but historical artifacts to him, beautiful buildings with interesting musical traditions, but no real relevance to his daily existence. Now, faced with forces that rational thought couldn't combat, Christopher found himself desperately seeking any form of protection or intervention that might save his life. His first stop was the Catholic Church in downtown Seattle. The morning mass was already in session when he arrived, and he slipped into a back pew, trying to blend in with the other worshippers. But even in this sacred space, the feeling of being watched, of being hunted, never left him. During the service, Christopher found himself studying the other parishioners, wondering if any of them had ever faced anything like what he was experiencing at the moment. The elderly woman on the pew ahead of him fingered her rosary with practiced devotion. A young family sat near the front, their children fidgeting but well behaved. Everyone seemed to exist in a world where the natural order was stable and predictable. where evil was an abstract concept rather than a tangible force that could reach across distance and destroy lives. When the service ended, Christopher approached the priest, a middle-aged man with kind blue eyes and a patient demeanor that suggested he had heard many confessions and desperate pleas over the years. "Father," Christopher began, then stopped, unsure how to explain his situation without sounding completely insane. I don't know how to say this. I need help. I think someone's done something to me, something spiritual. Can you make it go away?" The priest listened as Christopher tried to explain what had happened to him in San Francisco, the woman's threat, and the escalating supernatural phenomena that had consumed his life. To its credit, the priest didn't immediately dismiss Christopher's story, but his suggestions were disappointingly conventional. "You need to pray, young man. Confession, attending regular services, and trusting in God's protection." Christopher looked at the priest and walked away. He left the church feeling no better than he had when he entered. If anything, the holy space had seemed to amplify his senses of being stalked by something that was unholy. Throughout the service, he had felt as if something was pressing against the church walls from outside, trying to get in, held back only by the sanctity of the building itself. Next, he visited an occult bookstore. Sammy had left him a message. "Go here. I researched. This guy's real. Go to him. Tell him what you're going through. He'll help you. Christopher, he'll help you." He was desperately searching for anything that might help him understand what was happening or how to defend himself against it. The store manager, a soft-spoken man by the name of Rodney, listened carefully to Christopher's edited version of his story. Sammy had called Rodney and told him a bit about what was going on, so he already had some things laid out for him. All right, this is what I got. I recommend several books on spiritual warfare, protection from evil influences. These are the best. These are the best on the market right now. Christopher bought everything that Rodney suggested. I've got you a book on prayer, spiritual cleansing, protection rituals. And here's one, The Power of Faith to Overcome Darkness. I would also recommend that you get several crucifixes. Religious medals are always good. And I've got 2 boxes of candles here. He also threw in a small bottle of holy water for Christopher Case that morning. He told him that it had been blessed by the Archbishop himself. Rodney rang up his purchases and said, "Faith is the strongest weapon against any evil. Whatever you're facing, man, remember the no dark force can ultimately triumph over genuine faith and the protection of God. Christopher wanted desperately to believe this, but even as he spoke with the occult store manager, he could feel the malevolent presence that had been stalking him, pressing all the closer, as if it were offended by his attempts to seek protection. That afternoon, he called Sammy again. His voice was barely recognizable at this point, hoarse from lack of sleep and raw with terror. Sammy, it's tomorrow. She said 7 days. Tomorrow is the 7th day. I can feel it getting ready to happen. I've tried everything. Churches, prayer, holy water, crucifixes. Nothing is working. Sammy was deeply alarmed by the deterioration of Christopher's voice and his mental state. Christopher, you need to get out of that apartment. I can't outrun her. You need to get out of the apartment, Christopher. Go to a hospital. Go stay with friends. Do anything. But don't stay alone where this thing can get to you. Promise me that you'll do that. You don't understand, Sammy, Christopher replied. It doesn't matter where I go. This thing isn't bound by physical space. It's attached to me now. It's in my dreams. It's in my thoughts. It's in my body. There's nowhere I can run. That evening, Christopher began what would be his final desperate attempt to save his own life. Using the books he had purchased from the religious bookstore, he turned his apartment into a fortress of faith. He hung crucifixes on every wall, positioning them at every doorway and window. He lit blessed candles and placed them throughout the apartment, creating a perimeter of holy light. He poured lines of salt along the base of every wall, across every threshold, and around his bed, salt being traditionally used for spiritual protection and purification. The transformation of his rational, minimalist apartment into something resembling a medieval monastery was complete within 3 hours. Christopher knelt in the center of his living room, surrounded by his desperate barriers against the supernatural, and prayed more fervently than he had ever had in his life. He prayed to God he had never really believed in, begging for protection from forces that he had never even imagined could exist. As night fell, he called Sammy one more time. I've done everything I can think of, Sammy, he told her. This doesn't work. If I don't make it through tonight, I need you to know that I believe you were right about all this. I should have listened to you sooner. Christopher, please, Sammy pleaded. Call 911. Get someone to come check on you. Don't face this alone. Please, Christopher. Please. But Christopher had moved beyond the point where conventional help could help him. He was fighting a battle that existed outside the normal world. And he knew with horrible certainty that he was losing it. I have to go, Christopher Case said to Sammy one last time. It's starting. Christopher Case hung up the phone and prepared to face the longest night of his life. A night that, according to the woman in San Francisco, would be his last. Here's a reflection for you. When facing forces beyond our understanding, do traditional religious protections have any real power? Or do they provide only a psychological comfort? What do you think, night dwellers? What happens when someone who has never truly believed in the spiritual realm suddenly need to depend on it for survival? Chapter 6. The final night. As darkness settled over Seattle on April the 17th, 1991, Christopher Case sat in the center of his transformed apartment, surrounded by the desperate spiritual fortifications he had erected against the supernatural force that had been stalking him relentlessly for 6 days. The candles cast dancing shadows on the walls, making the crucifixes seem to move in the flickering light. And then he watched in absolute horror as the crosses inverted. The smell of blessed wax mingled with the lingering scent of holy water, creating an atmosphere that was both sacred and surreal. Christopher had positioned himself equidistant from all the walls, as far as possible from any potential entry point for whatever was coming to him. He clutched a rosary in one hand and kept a bottle of holy water within easy reach. His eyes darted constantly between the windows, the door, and the dark corners where the candlelight couldn't quite reach. The apartment was unnaturally quiet. The usual background sounds of the city, traffic, distant conversations, a hum of electrical appliances seemed muffled, as if the very air had thickened around his building. Even the religious music he had been playing seemed distant and hollow, as though the sound waves were being absorbed by some invisible force before they could fully reach his ears. For the first hour after sunset, nothing happened. Christopher Case began to allow himself a sliver of hope that perhaps his spiritual defenses were indeed working, that the barriers he had erected might actually hold back whatever had been pursuing him. And then, one by one, the candles began to flicker. It started with just one, a blessed candle that he had placed near the front door, The plane wavered as if touched by a breeze, despite the fact that all windows were closed and there was no air movement in the apartment. Then another candle began to flutter, and another, until all the flames throughout the apartment were dancing in unison to some unfelt wind. Christopher watched in growing terror as the candle's behavior became increasingly erratic. Some flames stretched tall and thin, reaching toward the ceiling as if trying to escape from their wicks. Others burned low and blue, casting an unnatural light that made the religious symbols on the walls appear to writhe and shift. A crucifix fell to the floor. Then came the sounds. At first it was just the scratching in the walls that tormented him for days. But tonight, the sounds were different. More coordinated, more purposeful. It was as if something was moving through the structure of the building itself, traveling through spaces that shouldn't exist, following pathways that defied architectural logic. The scratching was joined by other sounds, a rhythmic tapping that might have been footsteps on a floor that wasn't there, whispers in languages that predated human speech. And underneath it all, a sound like breathing, slow, deliberate, and impossibly close. Christopher pressed his hands to his ears, trying to block out the auditory assault, but the sound seemed to come from inside his own head as much as from the world around him. The boundaries between his internal experience and external reality were dissolving, leaving him uncertain of what was real and what was the product of his terrorized mind. Thank you. At 11:47 p.m., according to the digital clock on his stereo, every candle in the apartment went out simultaneously. Can you imagine that? Dozens of candles. The darkness that followed was not the simple absence of light that Christopher had expected. This was a living darkness, a tangible presence that seemed to press against him from all sides. It was darkness with weight and texture, darkness that moved independently of any light source, darkness that seemed to have intentions of its own. Christopher fumbled for the flashlight he had placed nearby, but when he found it and pressed the switch, nothing happened. He tried again, checking that the batteries were properly installed, but the device remained dead. Even the digital displays on his electronic equipment had gone dark, as if whatever had entered his apartment was draining the very concept of illumination, the very concept of light from the space. In the absolute blackness, Christopher could hear something moving around his apartment. Not the subtle sounds that he experiencing for days, but the unmistakable sounds of a physical presence. Footsteps on his carpet, the soft whisper of fabric against furniture, the creak of floorboards under weight. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice cracking with terror. "What do you want?" The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was more frightening than any sound could have been. Christopher strained his ears, trying to locate whatever was sharing the darkness with him. But he could hear nothing except his own ragged breathing and the thundering of his heart. Then from somewhere very close, so close he could feel breath against his face, came a whisper. "Time's up. Christopher Chase." It was the woman's voice from the restaurant in San Francisco, but changed somehow, as if it were being filtered through something that wasn't quite human. The words carried undertones that seemed to resonate in his bones, creating a vibration that made his teeth ache and his vision blur, even in the darkness. Christopher tried to back away from the voice, but found that he couldn't move. Not paralyzed exactly, but as if his body had become incredibly heavy, as if the air around him had thickened into something like invisible molasses. Every movement required tremendous effort, and he could only manage slow, dreamlike motions. "You could have avoided this, Christopher Case." The voice continued, seeming to come from multiple directions at once. "All you had to do was show proper respect to me. All you had to do was acknowledge what I offered you." "Please," Christopher managed to plead. "I didn't mean any disrespect to you, ma'am. I don't understand what you want from me." The darkness around him seemed to pulse with malevolent amusement. "What I want. What I want," the voice hissed. "What I wanted was simple courtesy from you, Christopher Case. What I wanted was recognition of power when it was offered to you. Instead, you dismissed me like I was some pathetic old woman, making a fool of herself." Christopher could feel something moving closer to him in the blackness. Not walking, but gliding, as if it were floating just above the door. The temperature in the room had dropped dramatically. He could see his breath forming white clouds in the darkness, though he couldn't see anything else. "I offered you knowledge, Christopher Case," the voice continued, and now it seemed to be circling him, moving around him, around his immobilized form like a predator, studying its prey. "I offered you experiences that could have expanded your understanding of the ancient music you claim to love so much. Instead, you chose ignorance smell of sulfur began to fill the apartment, mixing with the lingering scent of the extinguished candles. Christopher's eyes watered from the acrid odor, and his throat began to burn as if it were breathing acid fumes. The ancient Egyptians understood death. Christopher Case. The voice said, now seeming to come from directly above him. They knew that it wasn't an ending. It was a transformation. Tonight, Christopher Case, you're going to learn what they knew. Christopher tried to speak, to plead, to pray, but found that his voice had abandoned him entirely. The weight pressing down on his body was increasing, making it difficult to breathe. His chest felt as if it were being compressed by invisible hands, slowly squeezing the life from his lungs. Through the supernatural darkness, he began to see shapes, not with his eyes, which could perceive nothing in the absolute blackness, but with some other sense that the terror had awakened in him. Shadowy figures moved around the edges of his perception. Forms that might have been human were somehow wrong in ways his mind couldn't process. The woman's voice came again, but now it was joined by others. A chorus of whispers that seemed to emerge from the walls themselves, from the floor beneath him, from the very air around his head. They spoke in unison, their words overlapping and interweaving into a sound that was more felt than heard. 7 days we promised. 7 days we delivered. The debt is due, Christopher Case. The debt must be paid. Christopher felt something touch his face. Fingers that were too cold, too sharp, too real to be his imagination. The touch burned like ice, leaving traces of agony across his skin. More hands joined the first, touching his arms, his chest, his throat. Each contact bringing fresh waves of pain that seemed to penetrate deeper than mere flesh. His breathing became more labored. Each inhalation was a struggle, as if the air itself had become poisonous. His heart, which had been racing with terror, began to skip beats. Thump, 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 thump. He could feel his cardiovascular system beginning to fail under the supernatural assault. The ancient music you love so much, Christopher Case. The woman's voice whispered directly into his ear as he tried to crawl along the floor to the bathroom. Includes the songs of death. Listen, Christopher. Can you hear your own unaliving song beginning? Can you hear it? And incredibly, impossibly, Christopher Case could. Somewhere in the chaos of whispers and supernatural sounds, Christopher began to discern a melody, haunting, beautiful, and absolutely terrifying. It was like nothing he had ever heard before, yet somehow familiar, as if it were a song he had known all his life, but had never been able to recall, to remember. The melodies seemed to synchronize with his failing heartbeat, each note corresponding to the increasingly irregular rhythm in his chest. As the song grew stronger, his heart grew weaker, as if the music were literally pulling the life from his body. Christopher's vision, what little perception he had in the absolute darkness, began to fade around the edges. He dragged his body along the hallway, reached out for the door. The supernatural cold was spreading through his body, numbing his extremities and making his thoughts sluggish and confused. He was passing, he realized with perfect clarity. The woman had kept her promise. The witch, within 7 days of her curse, he was going to be unalived. But even as his body failed, even as the supernatural forces pressed closer around him, Christopher pushed the bedroom door open. He crawled across the floor to the bathroom. Christopher Case managed one final act of defiance. With the last of his strength, with breath that burned like fire in his lungs, he whispered a prayer, not to any specific deity, not any particular religious tradition, but a simple human plea. I ask for peace, for an end to the torment, for whatever mercy might exist in a universe that could contain such inexplicable evil. The prayer seemed to anger the entities surrounding him. The whispers rose to a shriek. The cold intensified to unbearable levels, and the pressure on his body increased until he was certain that his bones would crack under the strain. And with one last effort, he heaved himself up and into the bathtub. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. The whispers ceased. The supernatural cold lifted. The oppressive weight vanished. Christopher found himself alone in his bathtub, gasping for air in what felt like ordinary darkness. For a moment he dared to hope that his prayer had worked, that whatever had been attacking him had been driven away by his appeal to higher powers. He tried to move, to reach for his flashlight, to restore some light to his bathroom, but his body wouldn't respond. Christopher realized with growing horror that while the supernatural assault had ended, the damage had been done. His heart was barely beating, a rhythm so faint and irregular that each beat felt like it might be the last. His breathing was shallow and labored, each inhalation a monumental effort that barely brought enough oxygen to keep him conscious. He was passing. Slowly. Naturally. Or as naturally as was possible after what he had endured. The woman's curse, the witch's curse, had done its work. Whatever had been in his apartment had withdrawn, satisfied that its mission was complete. Christopher Case, Night Dwellers, 35 years old, rational man of the modern world, lay passing in the darkness of his bathtub, unalive by forces that science couldn't explain, and that his rational mind still struggled to accept, even as they destroyed him. In his final moments of consciousness, as his vision faded and his breathing became more desperate, Christopher thought he heard something that made him smile despite everything. The faint sound of ancient music, beautiful, peaceful, playing somewhere very far away. Then the darkness claimed him completely. Unable to move, he rested his head against the wall in a final desperate posture of prayer and surrender. He knelt with his head against the shower wall. The salt lines he had poured around the apartment remained undisturbed. The glass candles extinguished, the crucifixes inverted. Had all failed him at his last attempt to hold back the supernatural tide. At some point during the early morning hours of April the 18th, 1991, Christopher Case's heart stopped beating forever. Question: if Christopher's experience was real, what does it tell us about the nature of reality itself? And if it was purely psychological, what does that reveal about the terrifying power of the human mind to destroy the very body that it inhabits? Sammy Solder called the police after she tried desperately to reach Christopher. And when they arrived, they found him. He was diagnosed as passing from myocarditis. He was a perfectly healthy man. What was so alarming is how they found Christopher in his bathtub. I suppose when his heart stopped, he fell backward. The police officers said, and it is documented, that he had his eyes wide open with the most horrified eyes, full of terror. They were wide open. Even Dr. Chen, who was the forensic examiner, she said it just didn't make sense. He was perfectly healthy, had never been to a doctor about a heart condition. What do you think, Night Dwellers? Do you think the curse was real that the witch pronounced on Christopher Case? Or do you think that he literally scared himself to be unalived? I will be really honest with you. I think it's 100% real. I think that there's just too many things. They actually have, I don't know if there is a, let me see if there's a documentary on it. I know that there was actual voice recordings where Christopher had sent messages to Sammy, his friend, and he told her everything that was going on. And there's not I don't know if there's a documentary. Let's see. It looks like there is one on YouTube. The Peculiar Death of Christopher Case. It's about 17 minutes. But a lot of people think that he just scared himself to death. He just scared himself. He was absolutely terrified, but I believe it's real. I really do. I believe it's real. For sure. That's right. Absolutely, Shirley. Spitfire says curse. Julie says curse. Pom Mom says curse. Kimmy says curse. I know, Palm. That music is so scary. Like I said, I've had people to tell me that they thought that they had curses on themselves. You know, like the one that I told you about, the woman that said that hoodoo had been used on her. Voodoo, yeah. I forget which one it was that she said, but she said that all sorts of bad things were happening to her because the woman had actually told her that she had did it, that she had put a hex on her, and she said nothing good was happening to her. Hey, Sinking Dreams. Hello, Wicked Raven. Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. She actually was from New Orleans, yes. Yep. He was a nice guy. Well, that's good. So that was a deep story that I thoroughly enjoyed telling you. Necromancer. If this is your first time here and you like what you saw tonight, consider hitting that follow button and the notification bell and never missing another Twisted Tales Live. Tomorrow night, true crime. It's gonna be a good one. Love you, Martha. We hit the lot goal. Thank you so much. We are working toward lighting up the Bewitched Boutique over here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone that has been here tonight, thank you so much. And I hope that you enjoyed the story. I do, Lauren. I have a lot of grounds. I do indeed. Thank you, Pocono. Thank you. I bet you won't forget that story for a while, will you? Night dwellers, hush. The hour grows late. The veil is thin. The hands of fate. Now curl around your weary soul, where dreams slip deep in dark control. The candles flicker, cold winds bite, and something stirs beyond your sight. You felt it there behind your screen, a whisper from your shadowed queen. I reign where moonlight dares not gleam. The ruler of your last long dream. With crown of thorns and voice of flame, the Queen of Shadows speaks your name. So bow your head and lock your door. The dead still walk and beg for more. And when the darkness begins to flee, you'll know that you gave your fears to me. In the darkest corridors of your nightmares, you belong. To me. You do. Pleasant dreams.